All right, welcome to the very first ever episode of the Next Gen TCG podcast. I am your co-host, Nic, TetraNinja. I am with my other co-host, Zack Browning, also known as GemMintPokemon. So let's begin our first ever inaugural podcast by first basically introducing ourselves and talk about who we are, what this podcast is all about, and what we hope to achieve with this podcast and just general stuff like that. So, Zach, let's begin. Let's introduce yourself to the fine people that are going to be listening to us, hopefully on a weekly basis.
Oh, yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm Zack Browning. I'm Gem Mint. Pokemon, that's what I go by online. I've been collecting as an adult the last 10 years or so. And I started out in 1999 when the yellow Game Boy came out with the yellow special edition. Played that for a little while, then ended up going Toys R Us, getting a few booster packs. And then from there, it was just like history and nostalgia. So if you've ever interacted with me in the community, I go to a lot of card shows usually throughout the year. I collect WotC, which is we call Wizards of the Coast, and PSA 10s. And so one of my crowning achievements is I'm the first person to collect all the holographic sets in PSA 10. And right now I'm working on the non-holographic sets, so commons, uncommons, rares, and those are my current collection goals right now. So,
which is just like astronomical, like just. Like it's so hard, and it's just like even like the storage for all those, like I'd done that as well, but I did it like all with like the original Wizards of the Coast, but I didn't do like base set or like legendary collection. You literally have done everything, which is it's just even just like in terms of storage, that's just like mind-boggling. Just trying to find a place to put all the slabs is crazy.
You don't want to know. The safety deposit boxes is more than 10. That's all I'll say.
It's the fact that like you can see like in the background, Zach has like just slabs just like sitting there.
Wrong way.
Just chilling there. Where most people put stuff like in like boxes, he has just so much overspill that he has to just throw them on
in process. Exactly. Yeah, we'll talk more about history and stuff and kind of get into the details. A little more interpersonal and stuff, but it didn't start out that way. I think the first goal was, to start with base set, then jungle fossil. So, if you think that's overwhelming or crazy, like it didn't start that way. It was a slow build. And
I think that's how like the majority of most collectors start off. That's how I started off. I started off with base set. My goal is just to have 3 cards.
Really?
Like my card, it was just the original starters. That's all I wanted. I just wanted the Charizard, the Venusaur, and the Blastoise.
Yeah.
And then like once I got those 3 cards, I literally did not buy another card for like several years later. Mm-hmm. And then like I just saw like one day, a couple of years later, I saw like the price of like Charizard was exploded. I was like, maybe I'll just jump back into the hobby and kind of like dab my feet into exactly all the other stuff, and then just kind of took off from there. But I would have to say, like, just even with all of Zach's accomplishments, he's actually kind of downplaying his achievements, because I'd have to say in terms of English WotC, he probably has the second most complete collection out there in the entire world. Top 5 at least, I'd say. Obviously number 1 belongs to our friend David Pearson's, which some of you guys may not or know about, but Zach definitely top 5 in the entire world in terms of English WotC. So that is a huge achievement. So he obviously, your stuff in terms of English, especially vintage Pokemon stuff, and all your achievements, the master set of which continues to grow to this day. Basically, any Charizard that comes out now, you pretty much make sure that you get a PSA 10 of in English. But do you dabble in Japanese at all?
A little bit. I think I actually finished Skyridge PSA 10 Hollows around 2014 or so. And then around 2015, 2016, I started getting into more Japanese, doing Korokora, trying to hit the harder sets like the E1 through E5. I thought that was harder, like Unlimited, First Edition. I actually haven't collected like Jungle Fossil, Team Rocket yet because it's so plentiful. Like you get 1 holo in every pack. So like why prioritize the easy stuff? Like prioritize the hard stuff. Like get the hard stuff out of the way. And then over time, it just becomes harder and harder. And then like you find out that, all of a sudden you got a Lily that's 60K. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't start out that way. It starts out with, a few people chase it, then everyone kind of catches on, and it grows. But we got to stop talking about me, man. We got to talk about you a little bit.
No. I'm just like amazed by the fact that like you've completed English WotC, and your next step in terms of Japanese are just the Japanese prints of the same cards. Like, to me, I would like try to do something a little bit just for like variety's sake, because like when I jumped into Japanese, I jumped into like I went from English basically to Japanese promos. I completely bypassed like the set cards just because I was like, I've already collected the set cards. I've seen the artwork for them in English. I kind of want to try something a little bit different. So I was like, it just boggles my mind. Which is like my next question to you is like, you've been doing this so long. How do you keep motivated and just continue collecting? Because like when I met like the majority of my goals in terms of English WotC, and then I was collecting a little bit of Japanese after, and then I was just kind of like, I was getting kind of bored with the hobby. And then I was just basically, because then I was just like buying like cards. So, because like I was just buying cards that I had multiples of that I thought just had like good potential value. It just didn't make sense in my head. I was buying a lot of level X English as well as like the Prime era cards, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, like those, like kind of the cards with like the little sparkles in the eyes. I was like buying those for like $30 a pop just because it didn't make sense. PSA 10s were going for like $30 when grading costs were like $10. And it just, and then, but like long term, that was a good idea. But you just feel like, I just got like bored with it, which is why I took like, I'd say a pretty prolonged absence from the hobby for the last couple of years. I took like 2 or 3 years off, really not buying anything new. And then I kind of started jumping back into it again, just kind of with social media and like basically seeing all the stuff where prices are now. Charizard hitting its max of like 400 grand US. Nuts. But which is crazy. It's dropped down. We're probably at like 2.25 now, 225 for Charizard now. But that's why I'm amazed at your story. Just like, how do you keep motivated to continue collect when you have basically almost everything at this point in terms of English, at least? Like, what keeps you motivated?
It's a really good question. I think there's like 5 or 6 different ways to answer that. There's not just like one way. Probably the advice, because you guys probably don't necessarily care like how it's you probably more care about more advice and how you can apply it to you. Is just go slow and steady. I've seen so many people, they hop in, they burn out, they're insane. I remember one guy, Gumbercleese, such a cool guy. He loved error cards, but he did error cards from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day for like 3 years. He was like the man. And then all of a sudden, it was too much, and kind of just had to leave. And so if you go slow and steady, just kind of constantly feed it a little bit. If you feel like you're doing too much, take a break. I took a break like 2 years ago for probably like 90 days or maybe like 40 days or so. It was just got to get a breather, just kind of recalibrate, realize what's important in life. Because I also treat the hobby as like sort of one part of life. And so for those of you that aren't aware, I still have a full-time job in healthcare, consulting. And then I also have friends and family that they like Pokemon, but they're not like super into it like we are. So it's kind of like you have this sort of, personal life, you have kind of like your work life, then you have your hobby. And I like to keep the 3 separate because it's a really good balance. So I can go to each sort of phase. And as time goes on, it blends more and more, but it's a really, really good balance overall. But there's like 3 or 4 other sort of like layers of things that we can dive into. So I've also found that the relationships part of the hobby has been one of the most rewarding pieces. And so
also we're going to get into this a little bit later. Also, one of the most important aspects of this hobby is maintaining good relationships. But we'll get into that a little bit later when we talk about our main topic of this episode. But yeah, sorry, don't dive too far into relationships because we'll talk about that later.
Okay, let's hold off on that a little bit because to me that is my favorite part of the hobby, and that's not a part of the hobby I expected, and it's something that just kind of happens over time, and like to have people that you're just genuinely happy when they hit a goal. I mean, enough said. We'll come back to it.
Yeah, the chase, like there's like when you hit like your chase card, like the community, you can tell like the community is happy for you when you finally whatever card you're chasing at that point, especially if you have like people who are helping you along the way, middlemen or information is just it becomes it's one of the most important parts of Pokemon card collecting in terms of just obviously your enjoyment of the hobby, but as well as your ability to kind of just keep basically meet your goals as well, because you need the community in order to meet your goals. But like I said, we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, that's Zach. Myself, like I said, so by profession, I guess I am a YouTuber. If you guys did not know, I've been doing video gaming YouTubing for about 11, 12 years now. I started in university making Call of Duty videos in my student room. And then eventually, while I was in university, that kind of was when the YouTube Call of Duty scene kind of took off. And then I decided to transition into Let's Play walkthroughs of basically any video game that I want to play on my own time. And then basically that's what I do full time now as a profession. And then while, like I said, I haven't been collecting that long in terms of if you compare myself to like someone like Zach, I think I bought my first Pokemon card in 2016. It was a very shady eBay deal. That was when eBay was a little bit
shady eBay deals.
eBay was a lot looser back then in terms of the rules. So it was so my first card, I can't remember which order, but it was from the same seller. It was a first edition PSA 10 Blastoise and Venusaur. I wanted the trio. I looked on eBay, then I messaged the guy and was like started negotiating a price, and then he kind of, I don't know, back then I guess eBay didn't have filters of what you couldn't say or information you could send, but basically he sent me a private message just saying what you can do is put it on eBay just so you have all the eBay protection, but once the card gets to you, just apply for a cancel. That way he could avoid like all the eBay fees and as well. This is the Wild West back in the day. So yeah, he avoided. So he gave me a discount because basically he got to bypass all like the eBay fees, as well as PayPal fees and all that. So those were my first two cards that I purchased. I was trying to hunt as well. He also had a first edition, which obviously at this point now I regret not buying. He also had a Charizard in PSA 10, a fixed stamped one. I think he wanted like $5,000 for it. I was more in like the $4,000 range, so I didn't pull the trigger on that.
Man, you just could spend an extra $1,000 and got another 100 or 200. You know?
So, but you know me, right? We Zach and I like we've done deals together. I've talked to him about stuff that I'm buying and how much I should be spending, and he knows that I am very much a minimum maximum person, especially when I try to get cards off him. I look for the best deals as possible.
Sell high.
At this point, I still not sold a card yet. We'll get to that a little bit later. Like everything that I bought up until this point is I still have. But yeah, long story short, a couple of years, I think like the next year after those first two cards, I bought like a PSA 10 Charizard off PWCC auction. I think the final price was like 6.5, 6.7 or something like that, which pretty good. If you compare today's prices. So yeah, and then like once again after I got those three cards, took a 2-year hiatus from the hobby, and then I jumped back in, and then I was researching cards. That led me to E4. Didn't really like how E4 was set up. Then I found out that they had a Discord. And the Discord was like a million times better just because you had like instant interaction with people. With the boards, you kind of had issues. Well, you had like, you type something out and then you had to like wait for people to reply to you. With Discord, it was just kind of like instantaneous. And then that's basically like where all the relationships that I have made in the community have stemmed from. Meeting people through Discord and then messaging through people through Instagram. My WotC collection isn't as complete as Zach is. Mine's almost there, but not as complete. I'm missing some of the big like Neo Revel. I'm missing a lot of some of the big Neo Revelation cards as well as some of the more difficult to grade expedition cards. But other than that, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So when you're talking about min max, why don't we tell people what you bought those Japanese base set hollows from me for? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember. I don't even know what cards you're talking
about. Okay, like a $40 Japanese base set hollow, like Nidoking, Mewtwo, Poliwrath.
Oh, I didn't buy those off you, did I?
Yeah, you paid like 40, 45 PSA 10 hollows.
Oh,
remember? And I was like, will you please give me 60? And you're like, no, man, 40, 45. You're like, take it or leave it.
How much are they now? I haven't followed.
A couple hundred at least. I
mean, okay, come on. We're talking about a couple hundred. We're not a couple thousand.
You did help me on the sample Pika. I don't know if you remember that deal where Tetra's like, should I buy my second or third or 10th sample Pika PSA 10? And I'm like, will you please let me get one? I still need like my first copy. And he's like, okay, I guess,
I think like my buyout price for that was like $3,000.
Yeah,
I think, and then the one I bought one on auction, I think, and then I bought like a complete set off Rusty, like the entire complete set off Rusty.
TCA Gaming Legends.
Yeah, TCA Gaming, which hopefully one day we'll have him on the pod in terms of a guest, because we will have guests occasionally on this podcast as well. So we focus primarily, obviously, on the collecting of vintage mostly. I'm not that strong with the modern scene. I don't know how you are with the modern scene.
I hear a lot of the dialogue, but for me, the modern pricing is just it's so just like variable and so high, and it's just so explosive. I feel like a lot of the value is already captured up front, and I think the modern market, the vintage market, are two totally separate markets. So you really like have to participate in it, and be in there every day. And if you're a card shop and you're getting distributor prices, you're cracking packs, like it's just gonna be much easier for you to collect modern and grade modern and all that. Everyone else that does modern, I think if you're our player and you have that player insight and like what's playable, what's not playable, that demand piece, like early mistakes I made with modern is like there was like this Alakazam that had might have been Fates Collide. It had like the Lugia and like the Umbreon in there. It was such cool art, and it was gold. It came out as like $9. I was like, this is such a cool card. This is gonna be a hit no matter what. And then I remember buying like 100 of them. Like I just thought it was like so cool. And then long story short, like the card just never took off because it like wasn't playable. It's like the playability factor with modern is like a huge piece to like where's the value going to be at. And then as we've come to learn, if it's a waifu, it's basically a guarantee. So they all just go up. So
I like one of the just a nice story of modern. So I forget what set it was. I bought for a Valentine's gift for my wife. You know, the Latios and Latias full art card where they're kind of like making a heart with head. So I bought that for her just as like a throwaway Valentine's gift for like, I think it was like $100. And then I think the recent sold for that is like $2,000 now. So, but it's not even like a playable card. It's just like, and it's not even like a hard grade either. I think there's like 700 of them or something like that in PSA 10. It's just like the art is just so appealing to so many people that there's just that demand to make a $2,000 card, which is absolutely insane for me, which is also scary because she brought it to work as well and just put it on her desk. just put it on her desk at work, and then it's just like a couple of years later you had like a $2,000 card just sitting at your work desk. Like,
you want to grab that and bring it home?
Like, and literally the janitor could have walked by and grabbed it, and then I probably would have just replaced it with another one for like it's just. But yeah, it's hard. Modern, like you said, it's just so volatile, but that's definitely a scene we would like that maybe we can like bring in a guest to talk about as well,
expert or something,
because that's not our expertise of modern. And also you mentioned as well the competitive scene. I don't know about you, but personally myself, I have never played an actual game with the Pokemon deck. I actually don't even know how to play the TCG at all. Do you know how to play?
Okay, I'll tell this story really short. I had to play in the 2016 Evolutions pre-release event. They said if you play, you get 3 extra packs, but they wouldn't give it to you unless you play. Okay. So I was living in New York City at the time, basically went to Midtown Comics in Manhattan. And then long story short, somehow I ended up playing across from like a 9 or 10-year-old like girl. And her mom is like sitting catty corner to me, and her mom is just glaring at me like, what are you doing here? Like, and I like look the same, this is like what was like 7-8 years ago.
She killed you,
like,
didn't she?
Hey, I don't want to beat her. I just want the packs. I just want the packs. And that was one of the most awkward moments of my life.
Can't you just forfeit?
I did everything I could to lose that match, and I lost.
Okay, that's
I was not going to crush her hopes and dreams. That was not how I wanted evolutions to start.
Were you trying to hunt like the staff Charizard, or what were you trying to get?
We couldn't get the staff out of the pack, but you had like the pre-release kit, and I actually pulled the Zard. And so the pre-release kits for evolutions, like you get 1 of 4, and I just got super lucky at the Zard. But a lot of people will open those to make the deck or whatever you play with. I kept mine sealed because again, it was the Charizard, and I knew the collectability of a sealed one of those.
So you wanted the pack just for a sealed collection. Okay, I gotcha.
Well, the packs you get, you can you can open them and put like a deck together, but you have to use the cards that you get in the pack. And so like if you have really bad pulls, then like when you play someone, like you're just not going to do that well. But if you open up all the things they give you, you can put together kind of like a makeshift deck. Then if you win, you get like bonus packs, or you might get like some sort of like, now they do prize packs, which is kind of cool. That's not something they had back then. But to get a staff pack, you had to know a staff member at a store, or like a Pokemon professor or a leader. It was always kind of like a relationship, and the card stores got them. And then, I mean, that's a whole tangent on its own, but those got a little valuable, and card shops kind of started maybe keeping those for themselves, and they shouldn't have. They should have given them to the staff, so.
Still happening to this day. It still happens to this day. Anyways, so that's it for brief introductions of who we are. Let's move on to what this podcast is going to be all about and what we hope to achieve with it. So basically, Zach and I share a huge love for I myself, Pokemon in general. I love everything Pokemon, and I'm assuming Zach likes Pokemon as well. He probably loves the collecting side more of it than I do, because he's absolutely nuts. But there's just always something going on in the hobby. News, PWCC getting bought out, cards being stolen off the printing lines, people buying big things, big sales, and I think that just the best way to get to know a hobby is just to constantly be engaged with it. And like on our own time, Zach and I would just literally sit on Discord for like hours and just shoot the breeze and basically just talk about the hobby. And we just thought, like, you know what, we could probably do this like on a weekly basis. Oh, is that what I think it is?
Yeah,
the 08.
This is a tropical breeze right here. It's not the 08, it's the English one.
So. Oh, it's the English one. Oh, you had me. I thought that was the 08 one for a second. You would immediately like jizz my pants when I saw it was the 08. But
this one's just as rare. Maybe a little. I don't know. About even. It's about even.
I don't know. I hold the 08 a little bit higher in regards. But anyways, that's for another story. But yeah, that's basically we're gonna talk about Pokemon. We'll take viewer questions, keep you guys up to date with everything that's in the hobby. And I don't know if Zach has anything else that he would like to add.
No, I think, we hop on different podcasts here and there, and, we're always in Discord, and like, there's so many times in the hobby, like I'd go like months without posting video or engaging, but like my DMs are full and I'm constantly talking to people privately, or I'm in a few different Discords, and I'm always doing something every day. And I think there's so many moments in the hobby that, like, if there was an ongoing podcast, like when Pokemon Go came out, or when Logan Paul, or, this or that, it's like there's so much news that happens every single week. And I feel like I share that with a small group of people. And that kind of keeps me engaged, this and that, but it really is almost a disservice, because if you can engage with a larger audience and share that information and really just kind of build something cool around it, we thought it'd be something really cool way that you can kind of basically use like all of our sort of like people we talk to, and we just bring all the news to you, and it's kind of a cool, quick, concise way. I know we talked a little bit about maybe keeping these maybe to an hour or so not anything too long. So it's something you could watch, each week when you get time, and you can get up to date on the hobby. And we kind of tell you exactly what's happening to us. So I thought that's a really fun way to just stay engaged pretty quick.
Absolutely. Like our general idea for this hobby in terms of like reoccurring segments is basically talk about big auctions that's happened the last week. Luckily for us, every week there's a PWCC auction, and there's always news to pull out from that. Occasionally you have the rare candy auction, the heritage auction. That will be a dedicated segment, recurring segment in this podcast. But just because this is our first podcast ever, and we have a lot of stuff to do with introductions and stuff like that, we might have to glaze over, even though this week was kind of crazy. You mentioned the $60,000 Lily, $120,000 card selling. We will get to that, but we just have so much on the docket this week that we will hold that as well. Another reoccurring segment that we're going to be talking about is personal collections or like stuff that we picked up recently.
Yeah.
We obviously don't want to talk about stuff we're in the process of picking up because you want to make sure that the deal closes before you actually talk about it. Otherwise, you get some third-party interference running. So
out there.
exactly. So you recently went to Seattle to close out a big deal. So I'm gonna give you the floor, and you can kind of talk about what you spent 150 grand on.
150. Oh my gosh, that's so much. No, it wasn't 150. It was a soft 120.
Just 120. Just 120.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me for overvaluing by 30 grand. It's
no. It wasn't just me. It was a group buy. So we had around 10 different people, and we call it sort of the great TMB or VS group buy. Essentially, there's a group of people that have been trying to acquire a very, very rare set of cards for a number of, it seems like almost like over a year at this point. And basically every deal has sort of fallen through. And then a deal came up with some cards that were in kind of average condition. And so there were 8 English players that had English deck. There's a German player with a German deck, an Italian player with an Italian deck, and so forth. And so because this set was actually never made in English, these are the only English examples of this deck. And so in 2001, there were 8 decks total. And then there was one extra deck that the dads got to play with, which is kind of cool. They had like a little dad's tourney we can talk about. And then in 2002, it was widely believed that there were eight English decks as well. But we found out from the person we purchased this from, which is the 2002 deck, is the one I purchased this weekend. There were actually only 3 or 4 English decks total, which is way less what we thought. And there was one extra deck as well that's included. And so because these decks were played with, a lot of the cards are in pretty rough shape. And if you look here, this is a Claire's Mantine right here. And one of the big differences between the two cards, and Tetra, you'll probably throw these cards up as we go. I have a graded copy, which is a deck I bought last year. This is a Claire's Mantine. And then the one that's not graded is also a Claire's Mantine. But this is a pretty special card because it's an error card, and so the first year that they played it,
you just love your error cards, right?
Dude, the error cards are pretty cool, man. Like if you don't collect error cards, you're missing out. There's a pretty cool group, and they're all pretty smart people.
Pokemon is like one of the few hobbies where the error cards are card collecting hobbies where the error cards are actually highly valued. Well, like in sports, I don't think many people collect sports error cards. It literally it's a Pokemon thing where there's a market for cards that have defects in them. Continue on. Anyway, sorry. I just thought it's just weird. To me, that's just weird. But anyways, continue.
Yeah, but I guess just kind of show the deck a little bit. But basically, these are all the cards, in English. 4 trainers, then a bunch of Pokemon here. But each one of these is probably between 3,000 to 5,000 a piece. And then the Breeze, that has sold publicly in the past for around 70 for a PSA or a CGC 7 copy, which is kind of maybe an 8, maybe 7.5. I always forget, but it was like a 70 or 80K deal. It was insane. And then the Claire's Mantine is the rarest card of all. And so if you think there's 8 decks plus 4 decks, I think there's like 12, maybe plus a few extras here and there. The Mantine is actually different between the 2 years. And so they actually messed up the resistance here in the middle because Mantine is not weak to Psychic. Mantine is actually resistant to fighting, which is kind of crazy. So I know there's like a little bit of a blur there, but so what's crazy is there's only probably 3 or 4 copies of this card in the entire world. There's only 8 copies of this card in the entire world. And as Tetra was talking up David, one of our good friends earlier, he's the first person to complete that. And as of like yesterday or Friday or a couple days ago, I'm the second person. So it's quite a huge feat that I never thought would be accomplished. So that's why I wanted to buy the deck so much.
Just to reiterate what Zach was saying, like these cards were immediately played when they were handed out. You had to play with them right away. It's kind of like a test, basically, just to kind of introduce the cards. So you're never going to see like I don't even think you'll probably ever see like a PSA 9 of anything of these cards, right? At most, I'd probably think that you get like an 8. You might see an 8 somewhere at the highest, probably. So if you're a person who only collects like PSA 10 cards, then maybe not. Don't try to dip your feet into that, because it's not going to happen. But it's definitely a huge deal. So you said how many people were involved in the deal?
There's around 10 or so. And so I ended up picking up 4 cards from the deck. I ended up picking up the Mantine, the Dawn Fan. And so the deck who we actually bought it from is the 2002 world champion Mindy in the 9 and under division. So not only was the deck one of the 4, it was actually the champions deck, which is even crazier that still existed and that she had it all these years. She said she found it like at her parents' house, just kind of tucked away.
Oh my God.
Like no one knew it was. Yeah,
it's like everyone's nightmare of like your parents throwing away your Pokemon cards, like going in your bedroom and just tossing all your Pokemon. But like this is actually a real store, not like the fake ones that you hear online. Oh my God, that gives me anxiety just thinking about it.
She didn't even know it was valuable until she hit up one of the other players, John Brooks, and was like, "Hey, like I got some old stuff. Like, what should I sell?" And he's like, "Dude, do you still have that deck? Like, go find that deck like right now." He's like, "That's like $100,000 deck." And so she found it, and she couldn't believe it. And basically, she's been fielding offers for a couple months. So I think as Tetra probably knows, a lot of these deals, they don't happen right away. Sometimes they could take a month. They could take 6 months. I've had deals take years. You know, the first TMB deck I got, actually, it took 2 years. I told the guy I was interested, and it was 2 years later. He messaged me randomly in July. It was basically like, "Hey, I'm ready to sell. How long do you need to come up with the money?" And then it was like a week later, we did the deal, which is insane.
So she wasn't willing to break up the set. It had to be all or nothing, basically.
She didn't want to break up the set. She also didn't want to ship the set. And so like she went through what a lot of you guys are probably experiencing when you have a card collection at home. How do you sell it? How do you go about, that process? And so she thought about auctioning it. She thought about grading it. She thought about going to a card shop. She actually went to a card shop, and they made her an offer that, hey, would you like to display it and stuff? And you can play here for free, and we'll give you whatever card you need. Well, it's like you come up with all these like interesting sort of scenarios. And long story short, the group we had just made her the strongest offer, but she did think about grading it, but it was her fear of shipping it away. And if you aren't used to buying and selling, and you aren't used to just doing eBay every day, and your comfortability with like insuring and packing and all that stuff, like I can understand how shipping may be a big challenge overcome. But the more you're in the hobby, the more friends you make, sort of the more you get comfortable like sending things back and forth. There's a lot of hurdles that I remember in the beginning were kind of tough. And then you just get used to it. You just sort of know, go priority mail with this, or go first class with this, or overnight FedEx for that. It's like it just becomes more of a habit.
I have a story another day about my first ever experience trying to sell a card, which did not go over well. But we won't have time for that today. But it was basically like every possible thing that could have went wrong, and it was literally my very first ever selling experience. So I understand perfectly where she's coming from.
Yeah.
So you picked it up as a complete set. Was that all cash deal, or is this? I'm assuming because she's obviously not in the hobby, it was probably all cash deal. She probably didn't take like value deals for like trade and value deals.
So without giving too much info of the ins and outs, ultimately myself and then another one of my friends that bought the Breeze in the deal, and the winner Mindy, we all bank at the same place. Kind of random that kind of worked out that way. And so a lot of times when you do deals in person, you want to send a wire. A wire fee usually is anywhere from $15, $25, $40, depending if it's international or what have you. And so you go to a bank, you do a wire, it might clear right away. It might get flagged for review. You might have to take a couple hours. But because we all had accounts at the same bank, kind of a trick to sort of getting around that is you basically go up to the teller, you request to withdraw cash. And so I requested withdraw basically a ton of cash, and you kind of just let her deposit it right back in her account. So she gets access to it immediately. But because the bank's done this before, they kind of know what to do. They don't actually hand you cash and then like redeposit it. They actually just kind of do just a quick transfer.
Yeah.
But they have to sort of, they give me a receipt as if I withdrew it. And then she gets a sort of a thing where she just deposits it. So there's a lot of ways to go about a deal, but I would just trust your banker and whatever they say, because I mean, the rules and laws could change from when you see this podcast.
Yeah, I live in Canada, so Zach lives in Nashville. I live in Ontario, Canada, and definitely I'm not exactly sure how. Basically, like in Canada, you can't withdraw that amount of actual cash all at once. There's obviously it's first off it would get flagged if you're, and also the bank will not actually give you that much cash because they don't have it on hand. If you want to have that amount of cash, you actually have to order it a couple days ahead of time, and then they will have it shipped in wherever money comes from. A bank will not give you, in Canada at least, a bank will not give you that amount of money. So, so yeah, that is a huge deal. I just talk about like the provenance of those cards. So when I started hearing about these cards, I didn't know they existed up until a couple years. I think I was out of the hobby at that point. I think Mosin Only Collectibles, he graded the entire set, or they kind of went through him. So can you just want to talk about, like, you probably know the story a little bit better than me. Mosin obviously is a very polarizing person in the hobby. I've done deals with him that have gone out without any problems. Other people also have varying opinions of exactly how he does business. But my experience was pretty positive. He's a very, very straightforward guy in terms of how he talks to you. But you want to talk about how the cards kind of like filtered through him and then eventually got where they are.
One kind of quick little tidbit. I think when you have like polarizing people in the hobby, a lot of times when you meet people in person and you talk to them in person, like everyone's friends, everyone is nice, everyone is usually very cordial and stuff. And I think, in this internet age where we're all online and it's DMs and it's text messages and it's not video, it's not talking. A lot of times it's very difficult to kind of communicate, and some people are much better communicators than others, and some people display a lot of emotion. Some are very just straight to the point. Like Rusty's one of the kindest, nicest people, but he is very straight to the point. Like there is no fluff in between any of his words.
Honestly, I appreciate that. I am very much one of those people who are like, tell me what you want or tell me what you're thinking. I don't want like the whole diatribe of everything in the back. Like, you tell me what you want, I'll see if I can do it for you, and then we can just work there. So like I said, I appreciate those types of people. I'm one of those people myself. It's one of my failings or one of my personality flaws that I'm a little bit too direct sometimes. But anyways, continue on.
But what you would find is if you took everyone in the hobby, put them in the same room, and you like removed all the prior history, like everyone would probably get along. It's that's just kind of my opinion. If you travel a lot of events, see people like people get along. But
it's vastly different though in person though, right? Like people are they can be
nice.
No, I'm just saying, like, people, like some people like absolute keyboard warriors, and then like they will say like, if we're like a Discord call on like a open forum, people will like say stuff they would never say in person. And then I have this all the I see this all the time, especially in like the content creator community. People are very outspoken online, and then they say whatever they want to say, and then when you get them into a room, just like dead quiet. I'd like to think that me myself, I'm pretty much the same person I am online as I am in person. But it's like you said, like I said, it's just like people act vastly different online than they do in actual real life.
Yeah, gotta call somebody out. The Charizard King, he's a keyboard warrior online and very polarizing. And I know he'll enjoy hearing that, but in person, he's the quietest guy ever in the room.
Yeah,
he'll walk around a show, not say anything. Online, he's always doing the Pokemon and stuff. But keep in mind, we collect Pokemon cards. I mean, like it's all fun, and it's anime and all that stuff. So I think we all have very similar goals. But no, you're right on.
But yeah, back to Mosin and how the cards went through him and then where they ended up with you.
Yeah, so Mosin I think's graded maybe 3 decks at this point, or he's had at least 3 decks go through him, which is insane. When you think that there's only 12 or so English, there's more decks that just aren't in English. They're like Japanese or French or something like that. But for him to have like 3 of like the 12 or so go through him is insane. And I actually bought my first set from him, which is 2001. And just as a friendly reminder, like the deck I got, just last weekend, 2002, that's actually out. I only have a couple cards in that. So most of those cards are on other people, and they actually haven't received those cards yet. So we're going to get those graded and stuff. And then we'll send them to them and they'll get to see them for the first time in person. But Mosin, I actually got this graded set right here, which you guys kind of see, which is insane. And you can just see the grades on these. I mean, like 7, 6s, like all that. Like, I mean, 5.5, like, I mean, these are played with. And so what's really cool is when we were at Worlds for in the UK, London, for 2022, I guess, I got to actually drive up to kind of his city where he lives and do the deal in person. And we met at like the most like odd place, just like a gas station, because we didn't know really where to meet. And we're like, hey, we're parked here. It's like the nicest place we can find. And we just in the parking lot did it. And then, another cool thing is I've been talking to him so much about like no stamp, like WB cards, and he had a GemMint set, and it's something I talked about for a long time. And I was already like maxing out on this VS deal. Like I had no cash. Like I was giving him everything I had. And it was like, I need to make sure I can go home. Like, get right home. And he
or the plane ticket.
Oh, I had the plane ticket paid for, but it was like I didn't really buy too much else in London. Let's just call it that.
He is a guy who is not afraid to do an in-person meeting. He will like fly. It's like so long as like the value's there for him, he will fly directly to you and literally drop off the card. Dubai. I forget where our friend was in Finland, or is it some Scandinavian? You know who I'm talking about.
Probably Norway. There's so many Norwegian collectors.
Yeah, but I actually purchased a Battle Road Ring Pikachu from him.
Okay.
And then I got it middled by Elliot on E4.
Oh, nice.
Chaos. So they actually met up in person. Yeah. And so Elliot milled it for me and then shipped it to me. But yeah, he is not afraid of meeting someone in person to deliver a card.
Elliot's one of the nicest people in the hobby. Like there's so many people like I could say like they're some of the nicest people.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Zach's show and tell for this week. Mine's not as exciting.
What do you have, man? What do you
this man pulls a $120,000 deal. I was last minute, so I was lazy. But I also think my cards actually have a little bit of significance as well because it kind of ties to recent events. So what I have here is the Gold Star version of the Legendary Beast in PSA 10 from the Heart Gold, Soul Silver era. Reason I pulled this is not only because they were just back there, is because if you guys are new to the hobby, these ones, and like in most cases, if there's an English variant of the card, the English variant is generally more desirable just because it attracts more buyers. But in this case, due to unfortunate circumstances, the Japanese is actually more valuable because what had happened is that the holos from this set in the English version were actually stolen off the line, and basically by an employee, literally taken off the line and then taken out of the factory, and they were basically sold.
Are you sure it's Mosin, or is not Card House EU?
It might be Card House. Sorry, is it Card House?
I'm pretty sure Card House was the one that had.
Oh, okay. So it's Card House. Right. You're right. Sorry, I'm an idiot. So Card House. So the cards ended up with an eBay seller card called Card House EU, who basically tried to flex on everyone, and showed and recorded a video of him flipping through binders upon binders of these cards, mint basically literally right off the line, and that pretty much. If there was any advice to tell you of what not to do as a business person, would be to do what he did, because that basically just tanked the entire price of all of those cards, just because everyone now knows there are thousands of illegal copies of the cards online or in the wild. They were illegitimate, and that's why the Japanese versions of these cards are more valuable than the English ones. I think he tried to like in bulk sell them to basically all the major players in the hobby. Did he ever approach you to buy them?
He approached so many people, and the thing is, like he did sell them in bulk to people. Like, I think I don't want to say too many names, but there's multiple people that bought like 100 at once, 10 at once, 20 at once, and the price is really good. I mean, like when you think, I'm probably gonna butcher this, but like I'm thinking $25 to $35 a gold star. But the thing is, you're getting pack fresh mint, like minimum PSA 9, maybe PSA 10. But there were so many, and that's just where the way the prices were back then, So like base set hollows, like for example, were like $2 at the time. So like that's your equivalent. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, $35 is so cheap. It's more like it was a premium, compared to like a lot of things going on. But that's just kind of how low it got because there were so many. But do you remember how long that video was? Like you said, don't post a video. Do you remember?
Oh, I can't remember, man. It was because the video has because after he posted, he took it down like almost immediately. But then once he posted on the internet, it lives forever, right? But it wasn't the video that I saw. I think it ended up being on Vimeo or something. It wasn't more than like 30 seconds at a time.
Super short, but that's
super short. It all took. It was like they are forever tainted, which kind of the reason why I brought these cards is because that recently happened again with the Fusion Strike Modern. We don't know about Modern, but last month in April, news report got basically blown up that the hollows from Fusion Strike, pretty much the exact same story, exact same situation. An employee at the printing factory took off with thousands upon thousands of the hits or the hollows from that set. It didn't end up affecting the pull rate. I know there was a little bit of hints. There was a little bit of rumors that affected the pull rates, that they'd never replace those in the actual packs. I can't confirm this, but from what I hear, that's not true. Even though the cards were stolen, the pull rates were pretty much the same. But once again, one of the situations, if you are trying to do something illegal, don't just be obvious about it, because what happened is the seller eventually, the person who stole the cards, tried to hand them off at like a hobby shop in Texas. The hobby shop was just like this.
Dude,
this can't, you open, man. This can't happen. This can't be real life. So they ended up calling. I think they ended up calling TCPI, who already at that point knew that the cards were stolen. They just weren't revealing exactly. They're not making that public knowledge, but they knew that the cards were stolen at that point. And then they basically did involve private investigators. And I think obviously right now they are in litigation with the people who stole the cards. So it happened before. It happened recently. It'll probably happen again. But yeah, that's the reason why I decided to get these cards today.
So what's the lesson there? If you chase clout, then it all comes crashing down. Stop chasing clout, boys.
The second person, they weren't chasing clout. They just wanted money, right? They tried to just unload these cards as quickly and as they possibly could. They just went about it in a completely wrong way, right? So
do you think the binders with the gold stars, like just knowing that's out there, did that change your opinion at all on the dogs, or do you? Because I always thought they were super
first
cool,
off,
but
they're not dogs. They are legendary beasts. They are non-binary at this point. They're neither dogs or cats. They're like an Eevee. It's not any animal. It's just a beast. Anyways, continue on. Sorry, that's just my inner Pokemon nerd.
Tiger, liger, whatever you want to call it. Oh man, it's like what do you have? You have the cats, and then they're the closest thing. I mean, oh man.
Sorry. I just had to. I just had to be that guy.
I'm not gonna ruin your special card this week, but next week we will go back to the dogs.
Your question. Well, sorry, before I interrupt you, what'd you ask?
Just when I first saw the legendary beasts, I thought they were so cool. Like the gold stars coming out of the card, I thought it was incredible. But when the story came out that there were so many of them, in your head, you're kind of like, oh, it's not as rare, it's not as cool, it's not the gold star Ray, it's not the Latios, it's not the Charizard gold star. So did that affect you in any way? As far as your desirability, you wanting to chase them? Just absolutely. That story.
Well, to be honest, when I was jumping into the hobby, when I was into the hobby, I was looking at prices of them, and then they're PSA 10 for each of the dogs in English was about, I think, $300, which was for a gold star, that's dirt cheap, right? but at the same time, but there's a reason why it's $300, right? It's just no one wants them. at this point. It's just like they know that there's, but I think that's one of those things that is important to like be deep into the hobby. Like at first, if you're from like an outside observer
Yeah.
and you're like researching, I'm gonna collect gold stars, and then you get like you're looking at all the cards, each one's like at least $1,000. Then all of a sudden you see this crater of pretty desirable species of Pokemon, and you're wondering to yourself, why is this card only $300 and all the other cards are minimum $1,000? And then that again, it brings you to an interesting section of the hobby. If you didn't know, then you just jump on Discord or forum. I think that's how I found it. I found out about them. I literally jumped on Discord. I'm like, why is this card only $300 opposed to the other ones? And then it's just one of those things that you pick up in the hobby. You're just trying to constantly be and talking to people.
Yeah, I think that, I've got a similar story to that. I actually, I love collecting PSA 10, of anything that you can. And sometimes some of the error cards are harder to find. And I actually never picked up a PSA 10 No Stage Blastoise. And I could have got one for 900 or 1200 or so a few different times. But the reason I didn't.
What year? I think when we talk about like these time machine prices, I think we need to we needed to establish like what year it was that this happened.
Maybe like if we're talking about those prices, this is probably 2017, maybe 2018, around then. And the reason I never picked one up is because I knew someone that had 70 copies, and they were mostly near mint to mint. And that sort of inside hobby knowledge actually kept me from ever pursuing it, because I knew that they could grade more. And I knew that of the 5 that existed, that this person had graded 3 of them, and that they had a lot ungraded. And so it kept me from ever buying one. And well, the thing is, to this day, I still haven't bought one, because the last auction went for like $8,000 or so. And it's like, well, maybe I should have bought that card back then. So even though the gold star was only $300, if you would have bought it back then, like, you still would have done better today. Like, you still would have done well. But don't let some of that stuff, help you ride the wave with the crowd. Sometimes going against the crowd and is helpful, but the hobby, you got to respect the hobby knowledge, but don't let that just be the only sort of factor. If you collect what you love and what you like, generally, you'll do pretty well. I actually had a conversation with a guy in DMs, and he's like, I don't always pick the winners and the losers, but sometimes there's just cards that I like and they're cheap, and I pick them up, and I find out that 6 months later, other people start liking them and the price goes up, and then I kind of sell them or maybe get something else. And it's like, if you like it, chances are somebody else likes it. And, we tend to all kind of think a little bit alike, which is kind of cool. So just let your passion sort of drive you, and I think you'll do well.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Like,
yeah,
when you said, like, if you like it, there's a reason why you like it. And there's probably a reason why other people are gonna like that card. We already talked about this earlier. The Heart Latios and Latias, like, very easy to grade card, readily available, over 700 PSA 10 copies, $2,000. It doesn't make a lot of sense. The Burning Shadows Hyper Rare Charizard is another one of those cards. It's just like, obviously it's a Charizard, but for the longest time when those cards were coming in, I could not understand why that price was holding at $1,000. Just because
I remember that.
It was just, I don't even know what the price for Burning Shadows Charizard now is, but like, it didn't make sense based on my experience of the hobby, of what I knew, that it was just holding steady at $1,000. I think there's got to be over like 1,000 of them at this point in PSA 10. It just
the pop is so far beyond the vintage, but the price is so high up. It's like, this doesn't make sense, and it's like, what do you do? That
exactly.
Scenario.
But but like I said, if you like it, there's a reason why. Like, we're probably got to save like this topic, because we're kind of running a little bit long here in terms of how to make money in the hobby, to either finance future buys or to add extra surplus of income for yourself. But at the end of the day, if you buy what you like, I don't think you'll ever be disappointed of your purchases. And if you buy what you like, and then like you said earlier, if you like it, someone else will like it, and hopefully it'll raise in value at some point a little bit later down the road.
So that could be next week's topic. How do you make money or how do you collect? So if you guys have specific questions and you want to drop them in the comments, probably the first day or so after the video goes live, we'll look at the comments just because we record the next week's episode pretty close. So if you want your question or comment answered, you got to leave it within the 24 hours or so. And then maybe you and I can actually think about it and address some of the comments directly.
Yeah. So we record the podcast every Monday night. Just because we like to Monday right after PWCC auctions end, and that way we can talk about prices of stuff, and that we also get a viewpoint of what's coming up in the next week's auction. That we kind of, if anything, like piques our interest and we think is interesting at that point. But the podcast actually will probably release a little bit later in the week. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just because of editing and making sure that everything looks good, sounds good, and that stuff like that. But yeah, we record. So just in case, like, if like a bit major piece of news breaks and they're like, why didn't they talk about it in the podcast?
Come on, Tetra.
We'll talk about it. Why did they talk about it? We record every Monday night, basically. Yeah. So, but yeah.
I've got to talk about the Latios since you brought it up twice.
Okay.
Do you know the really weird fact about that card that isn't as pure as with the love? I don't want to ruin the card for you.
You got to ruin the card. You can't, but the problem is now I can't know. So you have to tell me now.
So there's all kinds of love in this world that you can have with someone. You can have, like love for your significant other. You could have love for your children. You could also have love for your brother or sister, which is what this card is. It's a brother and a sister making the heart. Yeah. So it's not.
It's fine. There's nothing going on other than just affection. Which you hug your sister, or you hug your brother. It's just
like a lot of people see that and they're like, "What?" And it's like it's like almost like a Valentine's Day thing. It's like I don't know, guys. It's probably more of like a good to see you at the holidays type of thing.
Yeah, okay. I got you. Don't worry. Like I said, when I bought it, it was a Valentine's Day gift anyway, so that's exactly why I bought it. But upcoming week, I know we're running a little bit long here, but you are going to California again to go to Card Party and have fun with a bunch of other content creators as well as some collectors as well, major collectors in the community. So you want to talk about what Card Party is all about very briefly?
Yeah, so Card Party is an event that's essentially hosted by Pat Flynn. He wrote the book called Superfan. He's kind of a world-renowned sort of social media sort of just person who just knows how to build a fan base and is just an expert in his field and his craft. And he actually started the YouTube channel called Deep Pocket Monster, which many of you have probably heard. It's one of the most high quality channels out there as far as just content, engagement, and just stay up to date. And Pat is such a nice, humble, just awesome guy. And so Pat, in conjunction with sort of a professional event organizing firm, have sort of come together for an event called Card Party. And a lot of events you go to, it's kind of like vendors or it's, regionals or playing. And Card Party is really one of the first events that's focused on creators and it's focused on, content in the hobby and sort of like the kids and playing the game and engagement. And if you think of this world that we're in with Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and all these things, it's like a lot of the people you go to and a lot of things you like, you're almost kind of driven by your favorite content creators. And there's all kinds out there, all different types, all different, heights, weights, ethnicity, sizes, and things that they love. I love Jolteon. How many people love Jolteon? Everyone loves Jolteon, I think. Probably not. But, you have all these different people. And when you bring them all together to Card Party, it's really going to be the first time that something like this has happened at a scale where you have someone who's as well known and well renowned as Pat, and as well funded as this is. Those who may not know, it's actually, the event's not profitable. He's running at a loss, coming out of his own pocket. He told us that privately, but it's okay. And long story
is it okay though? Is it okay?
But, it's like Pat's like basically taking a hit here to make something really, really cool. And, I can't be happier just to go there, support this, see how it goes. And if you can't make it this year, hopefully you can make it next year for year two. I think it's going to be one of the coolest events of the year. And I think it's going to be something that I try to go to at least every year. And hopefully next week we can talk about it because like it's like between now and then, like we're going to have Card Party. And then I get to like experience this awesome event and share it with you. So Tetra, how do we get you to Card Party? Are you going to be here year 1, year 2?
So everything was last minute. I just couldn't make it happen this year based on scheduling. We had grand plans of doing like a live podcast there at the event, but the logistics of me getting the time off. I don't have kids, but I have dogs, and if anyone who owns dogs know that they pretty much chain you to their house. My wife works full time, so we just logistics wise it wasn't feasible for me. But hopefully I will be there next year. But there are a ton of great creators that focus primarily on Pokemon content. I'm more on the gaming side, but you have PokeRev is going. You're going, Poke Chloe is going, just to name a few. There are a bunch of other ones that obviously I am missing out on. It would have been a perfect event for us because that's kind of what we're getting into, the content creation side of the hobby, which I think it is a very underserved segment at this point in terms of the hobby. Basically, my experience in the hobby is just like there are a ton of great people, but they're all kind of quiet and kind of sticks to their niches of either Discord or private text messaging and stuff like that. But like I said, there are a ton of content creators out there. Yeah, Pathland, when I was looking at like thinking of content to make for our channel, because obviously we have this podcast going up on our YouTube channel, on Instagram, basically all social media we have set up already. Wherever you're watching this, listening to it on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, wherever. Pat makes great content because I was looking at how video, if anyone has done how to store Pokemon cards correctly. I saw his video pop up immediately. He did an amazing job with his content, but that's kind of like, well, just because one person does it doesn't mean we can't try to do it as well. In terms of content, that's the kind of stuff that we're gonna try to bring to the table with our podcast, our community. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the goal of what we're all about at Next Gen TCG, talking about whatever this hobby has. We're going to have people who specialize in modern. I'm hoping to have people who are really into the competitive scene of the TCG. And it's just Pokemon. Pokemon is it's the biggest brand out there in the world, eclipsing basically everything Star Wars. There's nothing bigger than Pokemon in terms of media in the world. But at the same time, if you're in this hobby long enough, you'll know that pretty much everyone, it's a very small community. Everyone knows everyone, and maintaining the relationships and building the community is probably one of the most rewarding part of collecting and just getting to know everyone. So yeah, that is pretty much it for episode 1 of the Next Gen TCG podcast. We ran a little bit long, but that's it's our first podcast. We don't know what we're doing, right? We have no idea what we're doing. We're just trying to pretend that this is Discord and just like kind of shooting the breeze and talk about what we want to talk about. So hopefully you guys enjoy.
Shooting you guys breeze here. Whoops.
They just casually flexing in the tropical breeze.
It's breezy in here, man. It's so breezy. Oh my gosh.
If you guys have any feedback of the podcast, once again, we also have a question section. Leave your questions below. Zach and I will try to answer them in the next podcast as possible. Give you a shout out as well. But yeah, leave your questions below on wherever you're watching this, and we'll try to get to that. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the podcast, and we'll be back again. Not sure exactly how Zach's schedule is working out with Card Party coming out next week. We might be doing it remotely, but there will be a podcast next week at some point later in the week releasing. So yeah, that's the first episode. We popped our podcast cherry. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And Zach, you have any final words?
No, I think you said it perfectly, man. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for watching, and I can't wait to see where we're at in 52 weeks, when Card Party 2 comes back. And I'm just ecstatic to be partnered with you and do this with you. Just such a great content creator in yourself, and it's like going to elevate the hobby. It's literally going to bring so much, more, and we can't wait to sort of find out what our place is in the hobby and just provide value in any way we can. And just thank you guys for watching. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next week.
All right. Bye.
Bye.